Bill Bible. When the day came, the assembly of the elders of the people, both the chief priests and scribes, gathered together, and they brought Jesus to their council. They said, "If you are the Messiah, tell us." Jesus replied, "If I tell you, you will not believe, and if I question you, you will not answer. But from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the power of God." All of them asked, "Are you then the Son of God?" Jesus said to them, "You say that I am." Then they said, "What further testimony do we need? We have heard it ourselves from his own lips." Then the assembly rose as a body and brought Jesus before Pilate. They began to accuse him, asking, "We found this man perverting our nation, forbidding us to pay taxes to the emperor, and saying that he himself is the Messiah, a king." Then Pilate asked Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He answered, "You say so." Then Pilate said to the chief priests and the crowds, "I find no basis for an accusation against this man." But they were insistent and said, "He stirs up the people by teaching throughout all of Judea, from Galilee, where he began, even to this place." When Pilate heard this, he asked whether the man was a Galilean. And when he learned that he was under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him off to Herod, who was himself in Jerusalem at the time. When Herod saw Jesus, he was very glad, for he had been wanting to see him for a long time, because he had heard about him, and was hoping to see Jesus perform some sign. Herod questioned him at some length, but Jesus gave him no answers. The chief priests and the scribes stood by, vehemently accusing him. Even Herod, with his soldiers, treated him with contempt and mocked him. They put an elegant robe on him and sent him back to Pilate. That same day, Herod and Pilate became friends with each other. Before this, they were enemies. Pilate then called together the chief priests, the leaders, and the people, and said to them, "You brought me this man as one who is perverting the people, and here I have examined him in your presence, and have not found this man guilty of any of your charges against him. Neither has Herod, for he sent him back to us. Indeed, he has done nothing to deserve death. I will therefore have him flogged and release him." Now Pilate was obliged to release someone for them at the festival. Then they all shouted out together, "Away with this fellow! Release Barabbas for us." This was a man who had been put in prison for an insurrection that had taken place in the city and for murder. Pilate wanted to release Jesus, addressing them again, but they kept shouting, "Crucify him, crucify him." A third time he said to them, "What evil has he done? I have found in him no grounds for the sentence of death. I will therefore have him flogged and release him." But they kept urging, demanding with louder shouts that he should be crucified, and their voices prevailed. So Pilate gave his verdict that their demands should be granted. He released the man they asked for, and the one who had been put in prison for the insurrection and murder, and he handed Jesus over as they wished. As they led Jesus away, they seized a man, Simon of Cyrene, who had been coming from the country, and they laid the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. A great number of people followed him. Along with them were women who had been beating their breasts and wailing for him. But Jesus turned to them and said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and your children. For the day are surely coming that they will say, 'Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that have not borne, and the breasts that have not nursed.' Then he will begin to say to the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and the hills, 'Cover us.' For if they do this when the wood is green, what will happen when it's dry?" Two others also, who were criminals, were led to be put to death with Jesus. When they came to this place that is called the Skull, they crucified Jesus. There were with the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. Then Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And they cast lots for his clothing. And the people stood by watching, but the leaders scoffed and said, "He saved others, let him save himself, if he is the Messiah of God, his chosen one." The soldiers also mocked Jesus, saying, "Come up and offer him some sour wine," and saying, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." There was almost an insurrection over him. "This is the king of the Jews." One of the criminals who were hanging there kept deriding him, saying, "Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us." But the other criminal rebuked the first, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed have been condemned justly, for we are getting what we deserved for our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus replied, "Truly I say to you, you will be with me in paradise." It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m, while the sun light faded, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Then Jesus cried with a loud voice, said, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." Having said this, he breathed his last. When the centurion saw what had taken place, he praised God and said, "Certainly this man was innocent." And when all the crowd who had gathered there for this spectacle saw that what had taken place, they returned home, beating their breasts. But all of his acquaintances, including the women who had followed him from Galilee, stood at a distance watching these things. Now there was a good and righteous man named Joseph, who, though a member of the council, had not agreed to their plans and actions. He came from a Jewish town of Arimathea, and he was waiting expectantly for the kingdom of God. This man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then he took it down, wrapped it in a linen cloth, and laid it in a rock-hewn tomb where no one had been laid. It was the day of preparation, and the Sabbath was beginning. The women who had come with Jesus from Galilee followed, and they saw the tomb and how the body was laid. Then they returned and prepared spices and ointments. On the Sabbath, these women rested according to the custom. The Gospel of the Lord.